Have you ever taken a bite of something? Maybe your grandmother's dal, maybe the first mango of the season, and suddenly you're not just tasting food, you are tasting time, a memory, a place, a person, a feeling. Food is never just food, it is history served on a plate. It is politics disguised as a menu. It is identity wrapped in spice, and sometimes it is power disguised as hospitality. Welcome to the Personal Lens, where we explore the political through the personal. I'm your host, and today on the Personal Lens, we are taking a journey from kitchen to continent, from hunger to feasts, to uncover the politics and poetry of food. Let's start with something simple. What's your favorite comfort food? Chances are it says more about who you are than your passport ever will. For an Assamese migrant living in Delhi, maybe it's tangy fish curry that smells amazing on a monsoon afternoon. For a Punjabi farmer, maybe it's makki di roti with sarson da saag. Food rooted in soil and seasons. But here's the thing. Food is not just personal taste, it's collective memory. It's the smell of home when you're far away. It's the taste of belonging when you feel out of place. Anthropologists say food is one of the most enduring markers of identity because we carry it with us even when borders shift, when languages fade, when politics forces us into exile. Refugee communities all over the world, from the Tibetans in Dharamshala to Rohingya in Bangladesh, cook food that connects them to a homeland they may never see again. But identity through food is not always celebrated. Sometimes it's mocked, exoticized, or even banned. How often have people from the Northeast been mocked for eating fermented bamboo shoot or dried fish? How often have Muslims in India been targeted over beef consumption? The kitchen can be a site of both pride and prejudice. Food is political, always. Who grows it? Who cooks it? Who gets to eat first? Who is left hungry? In India, caste decides who can touch whose food. A Brahmin cook's food may be considered pure, while the same dish cooked by someone from a lower caste is deemed polluted. These are not old stories from the dusty history books. They are happening now. In India, caste has long dictated the politics of the plate. In villages, Dalit children are still sometimes made to sit separately during midday meals. And there have been cases where upper caste parents protest if the school cook belongs to a lower caste. The same food, the same rice and dal becomes pure or polluted, depending not on the taste but on who serves it. And then there are bans, not just of substances harmful to health, but of foods tied to identity and religion. And suddenly, a food choice becomes a ground for policing entire communities, marking them as outsiders in their own country. Food policing in schools. And the politics of food doesn't stop at our kitchens or dining tables. It seeps right into classrooms. In recent years, many schools across India have started banning non-vegetarian food from students' lunchboxes. Children are told that bringing meat, fish, or even eggs is unclean, offensive, or against the school's culture. At first glance, it might look like a harmless rule of uniformity, but in reality, it reflects something much deeper: how caste and religious notions of purity infiltrate even a child's lunch break. Food is never just about taste or nutrition, it is tied to identity, community, and belonging. By labeling certain foods as unacceptable, schools are not simply regulating diets, they are sending a message about which cultures are superior and which are to be silenced. The irony is striking. In a country where childhood malnutrition is still a crisis, foods scientifically proven to boost growth and learning are erased from the midday meal menus in many states. This isn't about health, it's about power. It's about enforcing an idea of what counts as pure food and, by extension, what counts as a pure child. Through something as ordinary as a lunchbox, children learn early that even the food they eat can be judged, restricted, and ranked, just like people in society. Globally, food supply is a story of power too. The colonial British didn't just trade spices, they monopolized them, extracted them, and used them to control entire economies. Famines like the Bengal famine of 1943 weren't inevitable natural disasters, they were political choices. Grain was hoarded, diverted, and priced beyond rich. While millions in Bengal starved, grain was exported to fuel the British war effort. Starvation wasn't an accident, it was a choice. The famine killed nearly 3 million people, not because food didn't exist, but because colonial power decided who deserved to live. Millions starved to death not because there wasn't enough food, but because there wasn't enough justice. Today, the same patterns exist just in more polite packaging. Multinational corporations decide seed prices. Farmers in Vidarbha commit suicide under debt, while coffee chains in cities sell a single latte for more than what a farmer earns in a day. And the story continues in new forms. Think about the Green Revolution in India. It boosted yields, yes, but it also tied farmers to expensive seeds, fertilizers, and a market system that left them indebted. Today, multinational corporations patent seeds, meaning farmers cannot even save seeds from their own harvests. Imagine that. The cycle of life itself privatized. Or consider the global coffee trade. The coffee you sip in a cafe for 250 rupees often comes from beans grown by farmers in Ethiopia or Karnataka who barely earn a fraction of that for an entire kilo. The glamour of a cappuccino rests on the invisibility of the labor behind it. You know that moment when you walk into a movie theater thinking you'll just grab a small popcorn and coke, and then boom, the bill is as much as a full dinner at a decent restaurant. This isn't just bad luck or premium experience pricing. It's a carefully engineered business model. Movie theaters and high end malls often make more profit from food and drinks than from ticket sales. The popcorn you buy for 350 rupees may have cost less than rupees 30 to produce. The rest is pure markup, and they can charge it because you're trapped in a closed environment with no outside food allowed, a policy that has faced legal challenges in India but still prevails in most states. In high end malls, it's not much different. A simple bottle of water suddenly becomes premium hydration at three times the street price. A basic sandwich in a food court can cost more than a thali outside. This isn't just about inflation, it's about creating a bubble where spending more feels like part of the experience. What we are really paying for is not the food, it's the monopoly. It's the fact that in that moment, in that place, you have no choice but to accept the price. And that's where everyday consumer life quietly turns into a lesson in power and control. Food waste and inequality. And here lies the cruelest irony. Even as food is used as a weapon of power and control, so much of it goes to waste. And here's a paradox that's hard to swallow. India produces enough food to feed its population, and yet millions go to bed hungry every night. How is that possible? The answer lies not only in access and distribution but also in waste. According to the United Nations Environment Programme Food Wastage Index report, 68.7 million tons of food is wasted annually in Indian homes. In simple words, it is about 55 kgs per person. It stands second worldwide in terms of household wastage of food, only followed by China. A report by the National Resources Defense Council says that 40% of the food produced goes uneaten in US, whereas in Asia, approximately 1.34 billion tons of food gets wasted, the main contributors being India and China. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, a considerable amount of food produced in India is wasted every year, lost in transportation, storage, or simply thrown away. Think about that. Almost half of what's grown never reaches a plate. The inequality becomes most stark when you compare extremes. On one side of the city, lavish weddings serve 20 different dishes, most of which end up in the bin before midnight. On the other side, a government school struggles to provide a modest midday meal for many children, the only hot meal they'll eat that day. Food waste is not just about carelessness, it reveals the sharp edges of privilege. For some, excess food is so cheap it can be discarded without thought. For others, a single roti carries the weight of survival. And it's not just households or weddings. Supermarkets often reject perfectly edible fruits and vegetables because they don't look good enough to sell. Restaurants throw away unsold food at closing time rather than distribute it, fearing liability. Meanwhile, hunger grows not from lack of food, but from lack of fairness. When we talk about food, then we can't ignore this uncomfortable truth. Hunger is not only a problem of production, it's a problem of justice. But against this waste, resistance has begun to simmer. Across Indian cities, NGOs are partnering with hotels and restaurants to redirect surplus food to shelters. In certain areas, community fridges are popping up on street corners where anyone can leave leftovers and anyone in need can take them. No questions asked. Apps now connect wedding caterers with food banks, ensuring that what would once rot in garbage bins finds its way to hungry mouths. These small acts don't solve the structural problem, but they remind us that waste is not inevitable and hunger is not natural. They remind us that food, when shared, becomes more than nourishment, it becomes solidarity. Food and gender. Walk into almost any home and you'll find the same scene: women in the kitchen cooking for everyone else. Walk into a five-star hotel and you'll see mostly men in tall white hats celebrated as master chefs. This contrast isn't accidental, it's patriarchy plated up. At home, cooking is framed as a woman's duty, unpaid and invisible. In professional kitchens, cooking is elevated into a craft, a career, and suddenly men dominate the top positions, winning awards, TV shows, and Michelin stars. The gender politics of food go deeper than labor. It's about who decides what we eat. Women often compromise their own nutrition to ensure that children and husbands eat better portions. In rural India, surveys show that women eat last and least in their households. In many Indian households, and not just in villages, there's an unspoken rule. The men eat first, then the children, and only then do the women serve themselves. By the time the choicest pieces of fish or meat are gone, the rotis are cold, and sometimes there's barely enough left. It's not just habit, it's hierarchy, a deeply ingrained belief that women's hunger matters less. Surveys by the National Family Health Survey have shown that women in India, especially in rural areas, consume fewer calories and less protein than men in the same household. And it's because, not always, because there's a shortage of food. It's because care, in the gendered sense, means feeding others first. This quiet act of self denial is often romanticized as sacrifice, love, and care. But in reality, it's one of the reasons malnutrition and anemia among women remain stubbornly high. Hunger here is not just about food, it's about power. Who deserves to be satisfied and who is taught to stay hungry? Food here becomes a mirror of patriarchy. It reveals whose hunger matters more. The gendering of food shows up in other subtle ways too. Light food is marketed for women, strong food for men. Girls are taught to serve, boys to demand. Even in language, cooking for the family is framed as love when done by women, but as art or genius when done by men. Food, memory, and resistance. So, food is also a language of resistance. Women have at several times resisted this kitchen patriarchy, from community kitchens in protests where women take charge of feeding thousands, to home cooks turning their recipes into businesses on Instagram and Facebook. Women are reclaiming the narrative. They are showing that cooking can be power, not just duty. And maybe the real revolution will begin the day a daughter or a mother takes the first plate of food unapologetically without waiting for permission. When black communities in the US revived soul food, they weren't just cooking, they were reclaiming a history born out of slavery and survival. When indigenous tribes in Australia cook native bush food, they are keeping alive a culinary heritage colonialism tried to erase. In India, Dalit writers like Bama and Om Prakash Valmiki have written about the foods of their childhood, often looked down upon as a proud symbol of resilience. Even in moments of protest, food is power. During the farmers' protests in India, corporate media attempted to delegitimize the movement by calling the protesters privileged because they were eating full meals at the protest sites. But those meals, cooked in langars, shared across caste and class, were themselves acts of resistance. Food there became not only fuel for the body but also for the movement. Or Shahin Bagh, where the women handed out hot chai and samosas to strangers, making political solidarity taste like home. Food is memory, yes, but memory can be a weapon too. The last bite. So, the next time you take a bite, remember you're not just eating calories, you are eating centuries of history, geography, migration, oppression, survival, and love. Food is never just food, it is what makes us human. It is how we tell our stories without speaking, it is how we remember who we are and how we dream of what we could be. Because in the end, to feed someone is the simplest, most radical act of care, and to eat with someone truly, equally, is the purest act of solidarity. Thank you so much for listening to The Personal Lens. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Do leave your thoughts and comments at the email provided in the description. And until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay critical. Most importantly, keep looking through the personal lens.